Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that we have all been waiting for since it was announced in 2012. I still remember seeing that first trailer with the woman with the mantis blades, and from that moment, I was already intrigued and excited to play it. I never played The Witcher 1 or 2, but after beating 3, I was so connected with the characters that I was almost depressed, and I had to look up why I felt that way. I know that sounds insanely nerdy, but it's a real thing. And that's when I discovered what is called post-game depression. Basically, the feeling of emptiness after finishing a game that was so great, you formed a real connection with the character and story. Post-game depression is something that I want to talk about in a later video, but just based on that, you can tell how much I really love The Witcher 3. Because of the amazing experience I had with The Witcher 3, I trusted CDPR to deliver, but unfortunately for Cyberpunk 2077, the game created such unrealistic hype, something that would end up hindering its launch. It's honestly crazy that it took almost 7 years for the game to be finally finished, but here it is today in all its beautiful, disastrous glory. This isn't going to be a full review of the game, but rather my first impressions, the good, the bad, and the very, very ugly. Although I know there are a ton of issues plaguing the game at the moment, I refuse to feed into the hate train the game's media wants you so badly to hop onto. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible while I go over what I think of the game so far, the big issues that I've personally experienced, and the trash the game's media has been pushing on this game even before launch. Before we get into the video, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy gaming content and news. I put a lot of work into my videos, so subscribing and dropping a like on the video is really the best thing that you guys can do for me. It really means a lot. And now, with all that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Just like The Witcher, Cyberpunk 2077 features a truly unique cast of memorable characters, all with their individual quirks and lovable personalities. Jackie is an awesome sidekick and a very well likable guy. Although I wish he played a bigger role in the story, I still really enjoyed the time I spent with him, and I really enjoyed fighting my way through the underbelly of Night City with my old pal by my side. He's definitely a character I'll never forget. As I said, I haven't beaten the game yet, but the characters I have met and the story that I have seen has been great, and I'm excited for more. Each character has a lot of depth to them, and the game really makes you care about them. The story is intriguing and fun, and so far I've had a great time. The gunplay and variety of weapons give me a Borderlands vibe, but also a Dead Island one, as weird as that may sound, because of the variety of mods you can equip to your weapons. The Cyberpunk upgrades are sick, and the branching trees for each ability are all unique and offer the player a variety of ways to play through the game. If you want to focus on hacking enemies, destroying them from the inside, you can do that. If you just want to run into encounters, guns blazing, destroying everything in your path, there's an option for that as well. All around, the combat is fun, but nothing too innovative or spectacular, although I do enjoy it. CDPR hasn't made a first-person RPG of this scale as far as I know, so for what they have pulled off, I'm quite impressed. The driving feels pretty solid most of the time, but sometimes it feels a bit clunky. It's not GTA 5 good, but it's also not Watch Dogs bad. It's somewhere in between, but the cars themselves are fucking awesome. Just the fact that Keanu Reeves' personal motorcycle brand Arch makes an appearance in the game is badass enough, but there's also an actual Porsche 911 Turbo, as well as tons of other awesome cars to choose from. The graphics are spectacular when everything is working without issues. Even while I'm running the game on medium-high settings, the game still looks great. For everyone lucky enough to have a PC that can run this game on Ultra, I'm sure it looks even more fantastic, but the game looks great for me just the way it is. The lighting in many deep and dark areas of the game illuminate the darkness of Night City and bring it to life. From the cyberpunk futuristic setting to the rugged desert badlands, all around, this is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. As some of you guys may know, this game was originally created as a tabletop board game by Mike Pondsmith, so it's only right that the game includes many of the old school RPG mechanics like player stats, backstories, and the choices that you can make throughout the game. Cyberpunk really does a great job of making you feel like V is slowly maturing as you play your way through Night City with the various upgrades and new cybernetic abilities you get along the way. Each new weapon feels unique and fun to use, and the dialogue options make you feel like you have a real impact on the narrative of the game. Rather than slogging through mindless dialogue where your character serves as nothing more than a vessel for the player to experience the story, Cyberpunk puts big choices into your hands, leaving you feel like you really mean something to the world. Unfortunately, we will now move into the bad side of the game. As I'm sure you guys all know by now, the release of Cyberpunk has been plagued by many issues, many of which render the game practically unplayable, especially for those of you who bought it on last-gen consoles. CDPR has now released a statement admitting that the game should have not released in the current buggy state that it has, and apologized and offered players a full refund from their respective places of purchase. Although I think this is a positive thing for many people who have had a bad experience with the game, this is still unacceptable that the game came out this way in the first place. Although the game has already recouped the entire price of development, the game is being review bombed for its rocky launch, and now, while I will admit I was a part of the crowd saying that this game should have never come out on last-gen consoles, at this point they are saying this game has become so advanced it's almost evolved towards being a next-gen only title, which I think we could all agree would be a much better thing. Wouldn't you rather this game run better, look better, only be on next gen, not be on the previous gen, so that they don't have to downscale it and waste all this time? Because I personally know I would much rather play this game in the way it was meant to be played, rather than people be able to play it on the fucking old systems where it's gonna run like shit and look like shit.
I was lied to, and so are you.
And while I'm still going to stick by that statement, I won't blame CDPR or people who haven't upgraded to current gen hardware yet, because it's neither of their fault. In CDPR's case, they are under an extreme amount of pressure from executives to come out with a bang and make the most money to make investors happy as they possibly can, and by leaving the old consoles behind, they are losing out on millions that they could be making from the people who haven't been lucky enough to score a PS5 or Xbox Series X yet. And while I understand this from a business point of view, just like CDPR said in their statement about delaying the game last month in November, they started development for the game 7 years ago, and the game was never actually meant to come out on next-gen consoles. The game was meant to come out on current-gen consoles with a release in April 2020, way back before the next-gen consoles had even been revealed yet. But the game got to a point in development that it was nearing being a fully next-gen game. Unfortunately, CDPR had already promised that this game would come out on the current gen consoles, and the game had already gone gold. Although in reality the game should have been delayed probably into 2021, CDPR had no choice but to release it in its current state with all of the issues that we see today. While I understand why this happened, and I don't want to blame the dev team for the botched launch, and I also don't want to blame players who were promised a game that was meant to release on old last gen consoles, I really don't like the sleazy way that CDPR went about hiding all of this from us. We barely saw any console gameplay, and the gameplay we did see was exclusively on next-gen consoles. There was not a single review copy given out for people to review on an Xbox One or PS4, and there was no gameplay shown for these systems. The only info about last-gen consoles we got was a statement from CDPR CEO that said Cyberpunk runs surprisingly well on current-gen consoles. But as we all know now, that was a blatant lie. On launch day, December 10th, the game came out hours early for PC, while console players were left to wait until midnight in their respective regions. At first, I didn't think too much about this, but now I understand that the game was not ready for consoles, so they wanted PC players to give out first impressions before the rest of the world got to see the monster that CDPR had been hiding all this time. I bought the game both on PS5 and PC, and the reason that I bought the game on PS5 was because I was having issues getting the game to launch on my PC, so I figured if I couldn't get it to work, I would just refund it on Steam and then continue playing it on PS5. But what I didn't realize is that was a huge mistake. My initial introduction to Cyberpunk 2077 was very, very poor. There were a myriad of game-breaking issues that caused my game to crash multiple times.
The fucking game crashed. Oh my god.
Item descriptions were getting stuck on my screen for hours, NPCs were doing strange things, and the AI in general was just atrocious.
I just hate that it was so hyped up, because like now I'm gonna be way more critical of it than I maybe would have been if it wasn't. Not the fucking telekinesis burger again. Oh, there we go again with the fucking telekinesis burger. Sir, how did you learn these powers of burger teleportation? Please tell me.
The driving felt super wonky and the shooting felt terrible. I chose the street kid life path and I was incredibly uninterested by the backstory. I hated how you were just given a montage of your relationship with Jackie, something I realized was the same for each life path and something I still really don't like. All of those things combined left me with a sour taste in my mouth and a negative and malice outlook towards the game. I convinced myself that everyone was right and the game was a terrible overhyped piece of shit, but it wasn't until I tried the game on PC that I really fell in love. While there are still many technical issues on PC, there are not nearly as many because the game was actually made to properly run on PC, unlike the last gen and the backwards compatible version on current gen consoles. I have been having a blast with the game ever since I gave it another shot on PC, and I highly recommend that anyone who has had a bad experience or seen negative reviews for the game either wait until a patch is released that fixes the biggest issues or just play it on PC as soon as possible, because this is one of the best games of the decade when it's working properly. Lastly, I'm going to go over some of the negative press the game has been undeservedly getting from games media such as GameSpot, who did a terrible review of the game, having the audacity to give it a poor review after barely exploring most of the game. The far left liberal SJW crowd always wants to push their narrative that games are racist, sexist, and homophobic, and that mentality is not just exclusive to Call of Duty. No, even a game with transgender characters or the option to be transgender yourself, those things are still not good enough to make these people happy. Gamergate propaganda driving zealots are never going to be happy with anything that these devs do, and that's just the way it is. With articles that drum up a narrative of transphobia, misogyny, and the various games media like Kotaku, who did their best to discredit the adult themes in the game as nothing more than just teen boy fantasies, even though they are an integral part of the story of a dark, twisted world controlled by corporations where sex sells. These so-called games journalists who are nothing more than liberal arts dropouts that resorted to writing about video games they have no interest in to make a little extra money simply want to paint a picture that Cyberpunk and video games in general are only made for racist and misogynistic cis-white males who want nothing more than to see the world burn. But in fact, we are the exact opposite of that. All we want is a fun game with great gameplay and a memorable story that leaves us wanting more, and I know that when this beautiful disaster is over and the rubble is cleared away, we will be left with something truly special. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way through to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed the video because I really enjoyed making it. Although Cyberpunk has its flaws, I really recommend you guys ignore everything that you're hearing and just try it for yourselves, because I know if you can get it to work properly, you'll have a great time with it. As some of you guys know, I have now set up memberships for the channel, and by becoming a member of the channel, you not only contribute to making my content better by allowing me to purchase new gear for making and recording videos, you also get access to special perks like badges that upgrade with each month you are a part of the channel, emojis to use while I'm streaming, and some other special perks that come with the higher tiers like early access to videos and gameplay with me, and also an exclusive role in the Discord. If you did enjoy the video, please drop a like on it, subscribe for more content like this, and if you really want to support the channel, join me on Patreon, where I've got some special offers for you guys there as well, like discounts on merch and some other things. Alright everybody, peace out.